Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture Down Under. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Absolute Edition of Dark Knight Master Race, written by mostly Brian Azzarello, with I think some scribbles done by Frank Miller as well, and with colours by Brad Anderson, like in Doomsday Clock. So, on the front of the slipcase of the edition here, we get a fantastic image of Batman and Batgirl, Carrie Kelly, from the original Dark Knight series, drawn by Andy Kubert. On the side, we get the same sort of design for DKIII that we got on the standard size hardcover back when this was released. And then on the back, we get an image of Superman and his daughter as well. And yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful hardcover. And the slipcase, I think, is really minimalistic. It highlights Andy Kubert's art with, I love the black as a background, it's very Batman. And yeah, it looks great on the shelf with other books. So, taking off the slipcase, I like what we get underneath even more. Before we jump into that, the bottom of the slipcase, we have 125 US cover price. Honestly, I think you're going to be looking at 150 plus for this in Australia. So, I really like this black and white image of Batman by Andy Kubert. His silhouette's here, it's in black and white, it's so Sin City looking. And especially this giant hand here, it reminds me so much of Sin City. So, Andy Kubert does a really great job in this book of the illustrations, and they look like Andy Kubert, but they also have a really Miller-esque sort of tone. If you compare Andy Kubert's work in something like Flashpoint with this book, you're going to really notice the difference. So the spine looks the same as on the slipcase, and the back is just black. And it has the same issue that I mentioned with the black hardcovers for Doomsday Clock. You do get fingerprints on here. So if you worry about that sort of thing, you might want to give it a bit of a clean every now and then while you're reading it. So let's open it up. Also, we get plain black bookend pages, and then our title page, DKIII. This is Frank Miller's art. Now, Frank Miller does do a little bit of art on the backups in here, which we will come to shortly. We get an awesome contents page giving us all of the issues and where they land. And you'll see, if you look closely, it finishes up at around 436, but the book keeps going for another 200 or so pages because this run had more different variant covers than anything else I've seen in my life, and pretty much all of them are included in here. So let's get into it, and straight away we are greeted with Andy Kubert's art, which really is a great fit for the story. And we get all the news reporters and things like that, very much DKIII, the original Dark Knight style. Get a bit of that creaking sound of the glue, because it is a sort of a glued sewn combination in the binding. So let's go through. We can see Andy Kubert's art here, like I said, it really is fantastic, but it is slightly different to his regular art, and it has a real Miller-esque vibe to it, which really fits the tone of this universe, and I really appreciate it. And yeah, fantastic. And the colours by Brad Anderson, colourists often don't get the credit that they deserve. The colours on here are spectacular as well. And he's always consistent. He's been collaborating with Jim Lee forever. All right, then we get to stuff like this. This is Frank Miller's art, okay? Now, the Frank Miller art that we get in here is hit and miss. Some of the stuff like this backup here about the Atom is actually not that bad, okay? It's definitely not up to the standard of what he used to do. Like if you go back and look at his original Wolverine graphic novel, the art in there is amazing, or Ronin. Compared to this is not great. But compared to some of the other Miller artwork that we've got in here and we've seen in recent years, he can still do it. He can still pull it out when he wants to. So the backups are short, and they're really the only time we see his artwork. And how much of this was actually written by Frank himself, I'm not so sure. He gets top billing, but I really, reading it, feel like it's more Brian Azzarello's book than Frank's. I love panels like this, how Sin City this is, the jail bars, the shadowing, so Miller, I love it. And yeah, I really think that this sort of stuff here, if you can see that, it's very Miller-esque, but it's still, you obviously can tell it's Andy Kubert's artwork. So I'm gonna skip through the pages a bit quicker, try not to spoil the story too much. But there is, this here is by Eduardo Risso, this backup, which I wish he had done all the backups. They look really nice. And if you don't know, Eduardo Risso did 100 Bullets with Brian Azzarello as well. He's also illustrated some of Brian Azzarello's Batman work, so they collaborate really well together. And then we get back into Kubert for the main issues, which are all stunning. And then, yeah, so if we keep going, flipping through, we get, oh, there's some more of that Miller. We get a lot of what I would call fan service for people who are fans of the Dark Knight. So, which is most people from comics. So you get the Bat Tank again, lots of things like that. Lots of moments that make you go, yes, this is exactly what I want in a Dark Knight story. Batman thrown down. Superman gets something pretty cool at some point in here. Lots of stuff that if I was writing a checklist of all the things I would want to see in a new Dark Knight universe story, they're there. But there's also a lot of things that are here that I wouldn't have asked for. So it is a mixed bag. Overall, I think it's a really positive package. Obviously, I wouldn't have spent the money I did to get the Absolute if I didn't like the story in the first place. I wouldn't blind buy this. I would definitely read the story before I bought it in this form of edition. Check out some issues digitally or something, buy the trade. Yeah, I would never recommend blind buying a $150 book. And when we get to the end of this, we also get The Last Crusade, which Frank Miller and Brian Azzarello worked with John Romita Jr. for. And to be honest, this is some of the best JRJR artwork I've seen in a really long time. The coloring, I really think, is do or die when it comes to JRJR's artwork. If he has the right colorist, it can look awesome. If he's not colored correctly, it comes off a little, I don't know, a little bit too loose and a little bit amateurish. I hate to say that about JRJR, but this is fantastic work from him. This is sort of takes me back to the kind of work he used to do at Marvel on books like Punisher Warzone, his Thor run with Jurgens, which is awesome stuff. This is really what I like to see from JRJR, or his work with Miller on Daredevil. So definitely worth it. And once we get through that, which was around about a 50-page one-shot, we get the covers. And this is pretty much the rest of the book. There are a zillion different covers by pretty much everyone in the comic book world. Some of the highlights are covers by people like Jim Lee. Here's some here, inked by Scott Williams. I mean, here, Batman and the Mutant Leader by Jim Lee. What more could you want in a cover? So, some really great stuff. We also get the pencils for some of those by Jim Lee. This Batman with the M60. I mean, I know Batman shouldn't use guns, but if he's going to use a gun, I want it to look this cool. And so we get lots and lots and lots of covers. Lee Bermejo by lots of different artists. Chris Burnham here really doing his best Miller impersonation. Some Brian Boland as well. Greg Capullo. So They actually released a whole hardcover of just the covers for Dark Knight Master Race, and all of the contents of that are in here. So some people actually spent, say, $40 to get a hardcover just of these covers, because some of them are really that good. So if you really like seeing all of the Jason Favre, if you really like seeing this sort of stuff and you like the art, this book, as much as it is for the story, it's almost like an art book as well. You're here for the main event by Andy Kubert, and then you stay for the covers done by pretty much the whole of comics artists. So Eduardo Risso, and they do some really great work in here. There's also some by Gary Frank, John Romita Jr., pretty much everyone you can think of that's been working in the last few years. So overall, fantastic purchase. Would I recommend you buying it? Only if you are a fan of the story. I really think that this is a love or hate story. There are people who are going to say that Dark Knight should just be left alone. It was best when Miller wrote the original. Strikes Again was not very good. A lot of people really hate All-Star Batman and Robin as well, and a lot of people lump this in with those books. I do think this is a cut above them, a big cut above them, though I do like All-Star Batman and Robin. But yeah, try it in a cheaper format first. If you like it, grab this. But if you really like Batman and you really like seeing Batman art, then it's probably enough in here for you, even if you don't love the story. So yeah, if you want to pick this up, go for it. It's got my recommend. Alright, thanks guys for joining me for this video. See you soon. Thanks again for supporting the channel. See you next time. Bye.